Welcome, traveler. We're glad you're here. Every story you hear is made with care and passion. If you enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and check out the other adventures waiting for you on our channel. Your support means the world. Thank you. The Void Eternal emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare-given form. Its massive bioorganic hull stretched 20 kilometers from bow to stern, a planet killer that had devoured civilizations across 37 star systems. Behind it, 300 Cathrol warships materialized, their hulls pulsing with sickly bioluminescence, weapons already charging. Primitive system. Advanced defenses. Supreme Warlord Krasvex's mandibles clicked methodically as his compound eyes analyzed the human defense grid. But insufficient. They will break. They always break. The Cathrol had studied humanity from afar. A species that spent more resources on exploration vessels than warships. A species that sought diplomatic relations rather than conquest. Weak. Unprepared for the storm that had just arrived at their doorstep. Begin the culling, Krasvex ordered. The first volley from the Cathrol fleet struck like divine retribution. Particle lances and plasma torpedoes overwhelmed the outer defense platforms of the Tau Ceti colony. 16 million colonists watched in horror as their orbital shields collapsed under the barrage, leaving nothing between them and extinction. As the orbital platforms disintegrated, the colony's meager defense force scrambled to evacuate as many civilians as possible. Emergency shuttles launched in chaotic streams, pilots pushing engines beyond safety parameters as planetary bombardment began. The Cathrol methodically targeted population centers, their weapons turning cities into craters of molten glass. The hive scatter, Subcommander Vexthar observed, mandibles twitching with amusement as the tactical display showed the fleeing human vessels. Initiate secondary containment protocols. The fleet's outer ring of destroyers adjusted formation, releasing swarms of bioorganic hunter-killers, semi-sentient projectiles that pursued the evacuation ships with single-minded determination. The massacre was brief and absolute. Of the 300 civilian vessels that escaped Tau Ceti's surface, only 7 made it to hyperspace. Admiral Katerina Vos received the transmission in her quarters aboard the Terran flagship Prometheus. The holographic display showed Tau Ceti's fall in merciless detail, buildings vaporized, oceans boiling, the colony's meager defensive fleet scattered like dust. Her face remained impassive, but her fingers tightened around her command tablet until her knuckles whitened. They hit 3 more colonies simultaneously, her XO, Commander Tanner, reported. Sirius 4, Proxima Centauri, and the mining outpost at Barnard Star. Casualty estimates are high, Admiral. How many? Vos's voice was calm. Too calm. Initial reports suggest 4.3 billion. Something cold settled in Vos's chest. Not grief. Not yet. Something older. Something humans had carried in their genetic memory since they huddled around fires while predators stalked the darkness beyond. Inform the Security Council, she said, setting down her tablet with deliberate care. I'm activating Directive Nemesis. Tanner's face drained of color. Admiral, that protocol hasn't been, it was created for precisely this scenario, Commander. Assemble Battle Group Omega. She rose from her seat, a diminutive woman whose presence suddenly filled the room. And get me Commander Reeves. The Admiral moved to the tactical display, expanding the galactic map to show the Cathrol advance. Their attack pattern wasn't random. It was methodical, systematic, the strategy of hunters who had done this many times before. Your assessment, Commander Tanner, she asked, though she already knew the answer. They're isolating Earth, Tanner replied grimly. Cutting off our colonial support before striking the homeworld. Vos nodded. Standard predator tactics. Separate the target from the herd. Her lips curved in a smile that never reached her eyes. Let's show them what happens when you corner an apex predator. Throughout human space, encrypted quantum transmissions activated dormant protocols. In hidden shipyards, experimental vessels that had never seen combat were brought online. In secure military installations, weapons developed but never deployed were removed from storage. The Terran defensive fleet, spread thin across human-controlled space, began a strategic withdrawal toward Earth. To the Kasthrul, it looked like retreat. They didn't understand it was the preparation for a counterattack. Marcus Reeves knew it was bad when they pulled him from cryosleep 6 months early. The muscle atrophy meds were still burning through his veins as he stumbled into the briefing room aboard the Wrath of Terror. The experimental dreadnought had been his home for 3 years as they tested its revolutionary systems far from populated space. Now, he stood before a room of equally groggy officers, all called from their frozen beds. The Kasthrul have arrived, he announced without preamble. For colonies gone. Billions dead. This isn't a border skirmish or a territorial dispute. This is extinction. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the Kasthrul advance, a wave of death pushing inward toward Earth at frightening speed. Admiral Vose has activated Directive Nemesis, Reeves continued. For those not briefed on the protocol, it's simple: we show these bastards exactly why humans dominated a death world for millions of years before we ever reached for the stars. He tapped the console, and the display changed to show the Wrath of Terror's weapon systems. Our ship is the first of its kind, quantum-phased weaponry, dark energy generators, and targeting systems that make our weapons quite literally impossible to predict or evade. We've kept these technologies in reserve, not because we couldn't deploy them, but because we chose peace. His eyes hardened as he looked at his crew. That choice has been taken from us. Effective immediately, all ethical constraints on warfare are suspended. Ecological considerations are suspended. The Geneva Conventions and the Rigel Accords are suspended. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the room. We're going hunting. Science Officer Nakamura raised her hand. Commander, the quantum-phase technology is untested against biological targets. The simulations suggest potential cascade effects we can't predict. That's precisely what we're counting on, Dr. Reeves replied. The Kasthrul rely on adaptive biological technology. Our unpredictability is our advantage. Tactical Officer Chen studied the holographic display of the enemy fleet. Their numbers are overwhelming. Even with our advanced tech, we're outnumbered 50-1. Then we'll have to be creative, Reeves said, bringing up a new tactical overlay. Battle Group Omega is deploying as we speak, 11 other prototype vessels with capabilities the Kasthrul can't possibly anticipate. We won't engage in conventional warfare. We'll hit them from angles they don't expect, using weapons they can't defend against. He highlighted the Sirius system. The Kasthrul have established a forward operating base here, using the wreckage of our colony as resources. Their bioships are literally feeding on our dead. That's our first target. Lieutenant Santiago, head of the ship's assault teams, studied the tactical display. Frontal assault would be suicide, even with our advanced systems. Who said anything about frontal? Reeves smiled grimly. We're going to emerge from hyperspace inside their defensive perimeter. That's impossible, Chen objected. The gravitational calculations would be impossible for conventional navigational systems, Reeves agreed. But our quantum positioning allows us to bypass normal spacetime constraints. We won't fly through their defenses. We'll simply exist beyond them. Throughout the briefing room, expression shifted from shock to grim determination. These weren't typical military officers. They were the best humanity had to offer, selected for the experimental program because they could think beyond conventional tactics. Make no mistake, Reeves concluded, what we're about to do will rewrite the rules of interstellar warfare. The weapons we deploy will make traditional concepts of combat obsolete. And when we're done, the galaxy will understand that humanity's peaceful nature was never due to weakness. It was restraint. The first counterattack came at Sirius 4. The Kasthrul had established a forward base on the ruined world, their bioships feeding on the remains of the colony. They didn't detect the Wrath of Terror until it was already inside their defensive perimeter. The human vessel's quantum weapons weren't simply powerful, they were abominations of physics. Beams that existed in multiple spatial dimensions simultaneously, striking from angles that shouldn't exist. Missiles that detonated in the past, destroying ships before shields could activate. Impossible, hissed Subcommander Vexthar as his vessel's port side simply ceased to exist. Their technology was assessed. They had nothing like this. They were hiding their capabilities, the tactical officer chittered frantically. The humans, the transmission cut off as 3 more Kasthrul cruisers vanished from existence, their molecular structures unraveling as quantum torpedoes rewrote local reality across the battlefield. Kasthrul commanders watched in growing horror as their supposedly overwhelming force crumbled before a single human vessel. Their bioorganic ships attempted to adapt, protective membranes evolving rapidly to counter the quantum weapons, but each adaptation proved useless against attacks that seemed to violate the fundamental laws of physics. Retreat! Vexthar ordered, his mandibles clicking in agitation. Regroup at, his command was interrupted as reality itself seemed to fold around his flagship. The quantum-phased beam didn't damage the ship, it simply rearranged its existence, turning the massive cruiser inside out in a grotesque display of biological matter and technology fused together in impossible configurations. On the bridge of the Wrath of Terror, Reeves watched with glacial calm as his ship tore through the alien fleet. Broadcast on all frequencies, he ordered. I want them to hear this. He leaned forward, his voice resonating through the void to every Kasthrul ship. We could have been allies. We offered you peace. The Dreadnought's main cannon charged, a weapon that had never been fired outside of the most secure testing grounds. You chose to make us enemies instead. The resulting blast cut through space like a surgeon's scalpel, bisecting the Kasthrul command vessel cleanly. As the two halves drifted apart, secondary explosions rippled through the alien fleet as power cores destabilized. No survivors, Reeves ordered. Send the footage to all human outposts. The galaxy needs to see what happens when humanity stops playing nice. In the aftermath of the battle, the Wrath of Terror moved through the debris field, sensors scanning for any surviving Kasthrul vessels. The ship's AI analyzed the effectiveness of their weapons, making minute adjustments to improve efficiency for the next engagement. Quantum phase disruptors exceeding expected performance by 27%, Science Officer Nakamura reported. The biological components of their ships appear particularly vulnerable to temporal distortion effects. Reeves nodded, studying the tactical map. Where's their next major concentration? Long-range scans show significant activity near the Proxima Centauri system, Chen replied. They appear to be establishing another forward base. Set course. Maximum hyperspace velocity. Reeves turned to Communications Officer Park. Has the footage been distributed? Yes, sir. All remaining human colonies and outposts have received the transmission. Park hesitated. We're also picking up significant chatter from non-human civilizations. The Arcturus Concordat, the Proxima League, they're all watching. Good, Reeves said. Let them watch. Let them all see what happens when you mistake humanity's restraint for weakness. For the next 3 days, Battle Group Omega carved a path of destruction through Kasthrul-occupied space. Each engagement followed the same pattern. The human vessels would appear inside enemy defensive perimeters, deploy their reality-warping weapons, and leave nothing but molecular debris in their wake. At Proxima Centauri, the Wrath of Terror led 3 other experimental vessels against a Kasthrul harvesting fleet. The battle lasted less than 14 minutes. At Barnard Star, a single human cruiser, the Nemesis, engaged 27 Kasthrul warships. The alien vessels attempted to adapt, their bioorganic hulls evolving reactive armor in real time. It made no difference against weapons that attacked through multiple dimensions simultaneously. As reports of the human counteroffensive spread, other species that had been watching the Kasthrul invasion with trepidation began to understand the true nature of their peaceful neighbors. Humanity hadn't lacked the capacity for devastating warfare, they had chosen not to employ it. That choice was now revoked. For 3 weeks, the war shifted in favor of humanity. Battle Group Omega, comprised of the Wrath of Terror and 11 other experimental vessels, cut through Kasthrul formations with ruthless efficiency. Colonies that had been occupied were liberated. Enemy supply lines were severed. The quantum weapons proved devastatingly effective. Then came the adaptation. They're evolving their ships, Science Officer Nakamura reported, her face grim as she displayed the scans. The bioorganic components of their vessels are developing resistance to our quantum weaponry. Each engagement is becoming less effective. Reeves studied the data. The Cathrol weren't just dangerous because of their savagery, they were dangerous because they adapted. Their bioships could evolve mid-battle, developing countermeasures to new threats. How long before our advantage is neutralized? At the current rate of adaptation? 2 weeks, maximum. Before Reeves could respond, the tactical officer shouted, "Multiple hyperspace signatures. Massive energy readings." The view screen filled with a horrifying sight. The Void Eternal had arrived with a new fleet, twice the size of the first invasion force. And their ships had changed, their hulls now covered with nodules that pulsed with counterphase energy. They've committed their reserves, Reeves realized. And they've engineered their fleet specifically to counter us. The wrath of terror shuddered as the first salvo struck. Alarms blared across the bridge as systems failed. Shields at 42%. Quantum phasing destabilized. Evasive pattern Delta, Reeves ordered calmly. And contact Admiral Vose. Tell her we're initiating Phase 2. The Void Eternal pursued relentlessly, its massive form surprisingly agile for its size. The Cathrol flagship's weapons had evolved specifically to counter human quantum technology, firing antiphasic beams that disrupted the dimensional properties of the Terra's shields. "They've analyzed our weapon signatures," Chen shouted over the sound of failing systems. "They're targeting our quantum generators specifically. Reroute power to secondary systems," Reeves ordered. "Activate the dimensional shift drives." The experimental drives were the wrath of terror's last resort, technology so dangerous it had only been tested in the most remote regions of space. The ship briefly phased out of normal space-time, becoming momentarily intangible as Cathrol weapons passed harmlessly through its hull. But the strain on the ship's systems was immense. "We can't maintain dimensional shift for more than 30 seconds at a time," Chief Engineer Rodriguez reported. "Hull integrity decreasing with each shift." Reeves glanced at his tactical display. The rest of Battle Group Omega was engaged in similar desperate battles, the initial advantage of surprise now lost as the Cathrol adapted to their technology. "Fall back to the lunar defense perimeter," he ordered. "All ships, coordinate hyperspace jumps. We need to regroup." As the wrath of terror limped back toward Earth, Reeves knew that the nature of the war had changed. The initial shock of humanity's hidden weapons had worn off. Now the Cathrol would bring their full might to bear in a direct assault on humanity's homeworld. "Send encrypted communication to Admiral Vose," he instructed. "The message is simple, the Predator has learned. Execute Charybdis Protocol." The next month saw humanity on the defensive. The Cathrol pushed relentlessly toward Earth, adapting to each new weapon humanity deployed. The death toll mounted on both sides, but the aliens had numbers that humans couldn't match. In her command center beneath the lunar surface, Admiral Vose reviewed the casualty reports with the Security Council. "We've lost 37% of our colonial holdings," she stated flatly. "The Cathrol have adapted to our quantum weapons, our relativistic kill vehicles, and our dark energy disruptors. Battle Group Omega has been reduced to 3 operational vessels." "Then we've lost," one of the counselors said, his holographic form flickering with interference from a nearby battle. "We should consider the evacuation protocols to the Andromeda shelters." Vose smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "On the contrary, Counselor. Everything is proceeding according to Directive Nemesis." She tapped her console, and a new schematic appeared, a massive, ring-shaped structure in orbit around Venus. "The Cathrol believe they're winning. They're committing their entire species to this conquest. And that's exactly what we wanted." She zoomed in on the structure. "This is the Charybdis Array. It's been under construction since we first encountered alien life 2 centuries ago. Its purpose is simple, to ensure that any species that attempts to eradicate humanity finds the price too high to bear." "What does it do?" another counselor asked. "It creates a targeted subspace distortion that affects only specific genetic patterns. In this case, Cathrol DNA." Her eyes were flint. When activated, every Castrol warrior within 50 light-years will experience their cellular structure trying to exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Stunned silence filled the chamber. "You're talking about genocide," someone whispered. "I'm talking about survival," Vose countered. "And I didn't say we would activate it at full capacity. This is merely leverage for the final phase." She straightened her uniform. "Commander Reeves is preparing to board the Void Eternal as we speak." The defensive battle above Earth was apocalyptic in scale. The Castrol fleet, now numbering over 1,000 vessels, pressed against humanity's last line of defense. Earth's orbital platforms, armed with more conventional weaponry, fell one by one as the aliens adapted to each defensive measure from his command post on the last functioning platform. General Santos watched grimly as the Castrol methodically dismantled humanity's remaining defenses. "Where the hell is Battle Group Omega?" he demanded, as another defensive satellite exploded under alien fire. His aide checked the tactical display. "The Wrath of Terra and the 2 remaining vessels are holding position behind Mars. They appear to be waiting." Santos cursed. With Earth's defenses crumbling, why would their most powerful ships be hiding? Unless they're bait, he realized. Vose is using Earth as bait. Before his aide could respond, the general's secure communicator activated. Admiral Vose's face appeared, calm despite the chaos unfolding around the planet. "Hold position for 17 more minutes, General," she said without preamble. "Keep their attention focused on Earth's defenses." "We're losing platforms every 30 seconds, Santos protested. "There won't be any defenses left in 17 minutes. "That's the point," Vose replied. "Make them think they've won. Make them commit their entire fleet." Her eyes hardened. 17 minutes, General. Not a second less. As the transmission ended, Santos turned to his staff. "You heard the Admiral. We make our last stand count. Every remaining weapon, every functioning platform, keep firing until there's nothing left to fire with." The battle raged on, Earth's defenders fighting with desperate courage as the Castrol fleet closed in. Civilian evacuation ships launched from the surface, heading for emergency shelters on Mars and the outer moons. Many didn't make it, cut down by alien interceptors. In the midst of the chaos, few noticed the 3 remaining ships of Battle Group Omega slip from their hiding place behind Mars. Fewer still realized they were on a direct course for the heart of the Castrol fleet. For the Void Eternal itself, the boarding operation was nothing short of insanity. Conventional tactical wisdom said you didn't assault a ship 20 kilometers long with a team of 50 commandos. But conventional tactics hadn't accounted for humans pushed to the edge of extinction. Reeves led his strike team through the Void Eternal's organic corridors, their specialized weapons burning through the ship's regenerating tissues. The vessel wasn't just a warship, it was alive, its passages closing behind them, hunter-killer antibodies pursuing them like white blood cells attacking an infection. "Central nervous system 1 kilometer ahead," Lieutenant Santiago reported, checking her scanner. "This ship's brain is the size of a city. And somewhere in that brain is Krasvex," Reeves replied, reloading his molecular disruptor. "Push forward." They fought through increasingly dense resistance. The Castrol warriors were fearsome up close, 3 meters tall, with chitinous exoskeletons and multiple limbs ending in natural weapons. But the humans had come prepared. Their armor injected combat stimulants directly into their bloodstreams. Their weapons had been designed specifically to shatter Castrol chitin, and they fought with a savagery that shocked even the aliens. When a warrior pinned Santiago against a wall, she didn't panic. She plunged her combat knife directly into its compound eye, twisting as the creature's ichor sprayed across her faceplate. When Chen's weapon jammed, he used a severed Castrol claw as an improvised weapon to eviscerate 3 more warriors. "Humans are prey," a dying Castrol gurgled in its broken translation device. "Prey does not fight like this." Reeves leaned close to the alien sensory organs. "You made a fundamental error in your assessment. We're not prey that learned to use tools. We're apex predators that chose to use diplomacy instead of teeth. You should have left us in peace." He drove his knife through the alien central neural cluster. As the strike team pushed deeper into the living vessel, the ship itself began to fight back. Passages constricted like arteries, forcing the humans to burn their way through pulsating flesh that regenerated almost as quickly as they could damage it. Specialized defense organisms, something between security systems and immune responses, emerged from the walls to engage the intruders. Biosignatures increasing ahead, warned Corporal Diaz, reading from her scanner. I'm detecting hundreds of Kazthral life forms gathering in the central chamber. They're concentrating their forces to protect Krasvex, Reeves concluded. Just as we anticipated. He opened a secure channel to the Wrath of Terror, still hovering at the extreme edge of weapons range from the Void Eternal. Initiate Operation Trojan. Targeting coordinates are locked. Acknowledged, Commander, came the response from Captain Rodriguez. Dimensional charges are primed. Awaiting your signal. The strike team reached a massive organic bulkhead, the final barrier between them and the Void Eternal's central nervous system. Unlike the regenerating tissue they'd encountered before, this barrier was reinforced with metallic elements, designed specifically to prevent intrusion. Standard charges won't penetrate, Santiago assessed, scanning the structure. And cutting through would take hours. Reeves nodded, retrieving a specialized device from his equipment pack. That's why we brought this. The device was deceptively small, a sphere no larger than a human fist. But unlike conventional explosives, it operated on quantum principles, designed to phase matter into alternate dimensional states rather than simply destroying it. Plant it at the center of the bulkhead, Reeves ordered. And everyone activate dimensional stabilizers. When this goes off, local reality is going to get creative. The team activated protective fields in their armor as Santiago placed the device against the pulsating barrier. The quantum charge didn't detonate with heat or force, instead, a silent wave of distortion rippled outward, the organic metallic barrier simply ceasing to exist as its component atoms were shifted into parallel dimensional states. Beyond the vanished barrier lay the brain of the massive vessel, a cathedral-sized chamber filled with neural tissue and hundreds of Kazthral officers. And at its center, suspended in a nutrient bath, floated the massive form of Supreme Warlord Krasvex. The Void Eternal's command nucleus pulsed with bioluminescence, a cathedral-sized chamber filled with neural tissue and hundreds of Kazthral officers. At its center, suspended in a nutrient bath, floated the massive form of Supreme Warlord Krasvex, his body interconnected with the ship's systems through thousands of biological interfaces. The humans breached the chamber with tactical precision. Specialized charges blew through the reinforced membranes, and they poured through the openings, their weapons cutting down the startled officers before they could react. Secure the perimeter, Reeves ordered as his team established a defensive position. He approached the nutrient tank, face to face with the architect of humanity's near-extinction. Krasvex's compound eyes rotated to focus on the human. You have fought admirably, the alien's translation device rendered its clicks and whistles. But your species is still doomed. Even now, 1,000 more ships approach from our home systems. We know, Reeves replied calmly. We've been tracking them since they departed Drazkov. That's why I'm here, to deliver a message before they arrive. He placed a quantum transponder against the tank. The device activated, projecting a holographic image of the Charybdis array. This device can rewrite the subspace topology for any genetically targeted species within 50 light-years, Reeves explained. With a single command, we could wipe out every Kazthral in this sector of the galaxy. Your reinforcements would arrive to find nothing but empty ships. The massive alien's mandibles clicked rapidly, the equivalent of laughter. Then why haven't you used it? Because you are weak. Because you still cling to your moral constraints even as we devour your worlds. No, Reeves said. Because extermination would be mercy. And you deserve none. He activated his neural link, connecting with Admiral Vose. Target locked. Transmitting coordinates. Confirmed, Commander, Vose's voice echoed in his implant. Charybdis array powering up. Limited targeting parameters engaged. What are you doing? Krasvex demanded, his massive body thrashing within the nutrient bath. Sending a message, Reeves replied, as his team planted dimensional collapse devices throughout the chamber. The array isn't targeting all K'Thrall, just one specific genetic lineage. Yours. The Royal Brood. Understanding dawned in the alien warlord's compound eyes. You wouldn't dare. The devices we've planted will tear this ship apart in exactly 3 minutes, Reeves continued, ignoring the protest. Simultaneously, the Charybdis array will transmit its signal. Every member of your royal lineage will experience their DNA unraveling across 7 dimensions. Your genetic line, the one that has ruled your species for 10,000 years, will cease to exist. He leaned closer to the tank. And then we're coming for your homeworld. Not to destroy it, to remake it. To ensure the K'Thrall survive as a species but can never again evolve into the predators you once were. This is beyond war, Krazvex hissed. This is extinction. No, Reeves corrected. This is consequence. You attacked a species that had mastered killing long before we reached for the stars. We developed nuclear weapons before we developed space travel. We nearly destroyed ourselves countless times. The peace we offered the galaxy wasn't from weakness, it was because we know exactly what happens when humanity abandons restraint. He stepped back, signaling his team to withdraw. Your mistake wasn't attacking us. Your mistake was forcing us to remember what we truly are. As the strike team began their withdrawal, Krazvex's clicking took on a desperate tone. Wait! We can negotiate. We can offer technological exchange, resources. The time for negotiation was before you slaughtered billions of our people, Reeves replied without slowing. What you're experiencing now is the consequence of that choice. The alien warlord's voice followed them down the corridor. You claim moral superiority, yet you condemn my entire lineage to extinction. How are you different from us? Reeves paused briefly, turning back toward the chamber. The difference is that we're leaving your species alive, despite what you've done to ours. Remember that when you watch your genetic line dissolve into quantum foam. The strike team fought their way back to the extraction point as the dimensional collapse devices began their countdown. Their dropship detached from the Void Eternal with seconds to spare, accelerating away from the massive flagship. Behind them, reality itself seemed to buckle. The devices didn't simply explode, they created localized ruptures in space-time. The Void Eternal didn't break apart, it unraveled, sections of the massive ship folding into dimensions humans had no names for. Simultaneously, across the battlefield, K'Thrall command ships reported their royal lineage officers collapsing, their bodies contorting as the Charybdis array rewrote the spatial dimensions of their genetic structure. The entire K'Thrall fleet fell into disarray within minutes. Without their leadership caste, their highly hierarchical military structure collapsed from the bridge of the Wrath of Terror. Reeves watched as the aliens' coordinated assault fractured into chaos. Ships collided with one another as command structures failed. Some vessels attempted to retreat to hyperspace, only to misjudge coordinates and tear themselves apart. Others simply drifted, their crews paralyzed without leadership. The array worked precisely as designed, Admiral Vose reported via holographic projection. The genetic targeting was 99.7% effective. The royal lineage is gone. Reeves nodded. And the rest of the species? Intact, as planned. Vose's expression was unreadable. The Security Council has approved the next phase. Operation Genesis is already underway. The terraforming fleet is assembling. And the enemy reinforcements. Without the Royal Command structure, they're stranded in deep space. Our long-range sensors indicate their formation has dissolved. A grim smile touched Vose's lips. They're receiving our broadcast now. The footage of the Void Eternal's destruction is being transmitted on all K'Thrall frequencies. Reeves turned to his tactical display, watching as the remnants of the alien fleet scattered. They're running. Let them, Vose replied. Let them carry our message back to their homeworld. We'll be arriving shortly to deliver the rest of it. The invasion of Drazkoth began 3 weeks later. But it wasn't an invasion of conquest, it was an invasion of restructuring. Battle Group Omega, reinforced with 100 new vessels incorporating the technologies tested on the Wrath of Terra, systematically dismantled the Kaz-Thrall defenses. Quantum weapons targeted military installations with surgical precision, avoiding civilian populations. When Reeves led the final assault on the Kaz-Thrall genetic repository, the sacred vault containing the species' evolutionary history and future engineering templates, the remaining warrior caste expected extermination. Instead, they watched in confusion as humans installed terraforming devices across their planet. Your species evolved in radiation storms and toxic atmospheres, Reeves explained to the captured Kaz-Thrall scientists. It made you strong, resilient, and aggressive. We're not going to kill you, we're going to help you. The terraformers activated, and across Drazkov, the atmosphere began to change. Radiation levels dropped. Toxic compounds broke down into harmless elements. We're giving you a gift, Reeves continued. A world where you don't need to be predators to survive. A world where cooperation is more advantageous than conquest. His eyes hardened. And if you ever try to leave this world to threaten others again, we will know. And next time, we won't be so merciful. The Kaz-Thrall head scientist, Vexnar, studied the atmospheric readings with a mixture of horror and fascination. You're changing the evolutionary pressures on our entire species. In a few generations, we'll be different. You'll be better, Reeves corrected. Your intelligence without your aggression. Your technological aptitude without your drive to conquer. You'll still be Kaz-Thrall, just a version that can coexist with other species. And those who resist this evolution? Vexnar asked. Will be given territories where the old atmosphere is maintained, Reeves replied. But they will be isolated, contained, and monitored. They will never again have access to space travel or weapons technology. Throughout the planet, human terraforming ships deployed atmosphere processors, environmental modulators, and genetic stabilizers. The technology wasn't new, humanity had been using similar methods to make hostile worlds habitable for centuries. But never before had they used it to reshape an existing biosphere, to mold an entire civilization. A delegation of Kaz-Thrall elders, those who had survived the culling of the royal lineage, were brought to witness the transformation. Many chittered in outrage, mandibles clicking furiously as they watched their world changing before their eyes. This is worse than genocide, one elder hissed. You're erasing what we are. Admiral Vose, who had accompanied Reeves to the surface, regarded the alien calmly. You erased 16 of our colonies. You slaughtered billions of our people. Consider this the most merciful response you could have received. You seek to make us weak, another elder chittered, mandibles clicking furiously. We seek to make you sustainable, Vose countered. Your species has consumed 37 civilizations before encountering us. That pattern ends today. Throughout the planet, resistance pockets formed as warrior castes rejected the atmospheric changes. These were dealt with surgically by human special forces, not through extermination, but with targeted neurological weapons that rendered the warriors docile until the atmospheric changes could take effect on their biology. Within days, the first physiological changes became apparent. Young Kaz-Thrall, whose bodies were still developing, showed reduced aggression centers in their neural clusters. Adult warriors experienced disorientation as their brain chemistry shifted, forcing them to process stimuli without the instinctive predatory response that had defined their species. You've weaponized evolution against us, Vexnar observed, watching as human scientists monitored the planetary transformation. A more elegant solution than genocide, I suppose. We learned long ago that killing creates martyrs, Reeves replied. Transformation creates possibilities. The transmission reached every corner of the galaxy, footage of the Void Eternal's destruction, the Kaz-Thrall fleet in disarray, and the terraforming of Drazkov. Along with it came a simple message from Admiral Vose: humanity chose peace. We chose cooperation and mutual prosperity. Remember what happened when that choice was taken from us. In the years that followed, a new term entered the lexical databases of 100 alien species. A warning passed between civilizations. A reminder of the sleeping giant that had awakened briefly to demonstrate why, despite all their apparent softness, humans had been classified as death welders in the ancient archives. The term was simple: Terran Response. And no species ever again mistook humanity's restraint for weakness. The restructuring of Castrol society didn't happen overnight. For the first generation, resistance was common, particularly among adult warriors whose neural pathways had already been fully formed under the old environmental conditions. Human peacekeeping forces remained on Drazkoth, not as conquerors but as guardians of the transformation. Commander Reeves, now promoted to admiral following Vose's retirement, made regular visits to monitor the progress. 3 years after the terraforming began, he toured a Castrol settlement that had once been a military hive, now repurposed as a research center. The atmospheric changes have accelerated genetic drift beyond our initial projections, the human xenobiologist explained as they walked through the facility. The younger generation is showing remarkable neurological adaptability. Reeves observed a group of juvenile Castrol engaged in what appeared to be a cooperative problem-solving exercise. Instead of competing for resources, they were sharing information, coordinating their efforts in ways that would have been unthinkable before the intervention. And the resistance movements, he asked. Diminishing, the scientist replied. The isolated territories where we've maintained the original atmosphere still house approximately 12% of the population, those who rejected the changes. But their numbers decrease each year as younger Castrol choose to leave for the transformed regions. Vexnar, now serving as the primary liaison between humans and his species, joined them as they continued the tour. The Castrol scientist's physical appearance had changed subtly over the years, his exoskeleton less pronounced, his movements less predatory. You should see the artistic developments, Vexnar chittered, his translator rendering his excitement. Concepts our species never explored before, beauty for its own sake, not merely as camouflage or threat display. It's fascinating. And military research? Reeves asked pointedly. Redirected entirely toward defense and exploration, Vexnar assured him. The neural changes have made conquest neurologically unsatisfying. Our species now finds greater reward in discovery than domination. As they reached the settlement's central plaza, Reeves noted the architectural changes. Structures that once resembled hive fortresses now incorporated open spaces, communal areas, even what appeared to be decorative elements. Some still call this cultural genocide, Vexnar admitted, sensing the human's thoughts. But I have studied your species' history. You underwent a similar transformation, did you not? From tribal predators to cooperative civilization. Reeves nodded slowly. The difference is that our evolution took thousands of years. Yours is happening within a generation. Necessity demanded acceleration, Vexnar replied. Had you simply destroyed us, the galaxy would have eventually produced another predator species. This way, you transform a threat into an ally. The Admiral didn't respond immediately. The ethical implications of what humanity had done to the Castrol remained controversial, even among humans. They had not committed genocide, but they had fundamentally altered a sentient species without consent. Was it mercy or a more sophisticated form of conquest? Our long-range sensors detected unusual activity in the Andromeda galaxy last month, Reeves finally said, changing the subject. Your people's observational technology was always superior to ours. We could use your expertise in analyzing the data. Vexnar's compound eyes gleamed with interest. A joint research initiative? This would be the first official scientific collaboration between our species. Consider it a test, Reeves replied. The first step toward reintegrating your people into the galactic community. As they finalized the details of the collaboration, neither spoke the underlying truth that humanity was preparing for threats beyond their current borders. The Castrol had been one predator species among many in a dangerous universe. By transforming them into allies rather than obliterating them, humanity had gained not just security but resources. The Terran Response had been devastating, but selective. The next time humanity faced extinction, they would have former enemies fighting alongside them. 5 years after the Castrol War, Admiral Reeves stood on the observation deck of the new diplomatic vessel Second Chance, watching as Drazkoth rotated slowly beneath them. The planet had changed dramatically, its toxic storms replaced by blue skies, its radiation-scarred wastelands now covered with engineered vegetation. The first generation born under the new atmosphere is showing the changes we predicted, Science Officer Nakamura reported, joining him at the viewport. Decreased aggression, increased cooperative behaviors, more developed frontal brain structures. And what about the adults? Reeves asked. The ones who remember what they used to be. Struggling, as expected. But the new biochemistry is affecting them too, albeit more slowly. She hesitated. Some are asking to have their original genetic structures restored. They say we've taken their identity. Reeves nodded. We expected that. Allow it for any individual who requests it, but only after genetic modification to remove the warrior aggression sequences. They can keep their physical forms without the drives that made them conquerors. Is that mercy or another form of control? Nakamura wondered. Reeves didn't answer immediately. He watched as a Kazthrul settlement came into view below, no longer a hive of chitinous structures, but an organized city with signs of art and culture emerging. It's neither, he finally said. It's evolution. We just changed the pressures. He turned away from the viewport. The galaxy wanted to know what happens when humanity is pushed past its breaking point. Now they know. Our job is to make sure no one needs that reminder again. The intercom chimed, interrupting his thoughts. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The Security Council is requesting your presence at an emergency session. Reeves frowned. Subject. Long-range probes have detected something at the edge of the Sagittarius arm, something large. A chill ran through him as he recalled the intelligence reports from the Andromeda observation posts. Tell them I'm on my way. And contact the Kazthrul Science Directorate. I want Vexnar on this call. As the second chance altered course for Earth, Reeves reviewed the preliminary data on his personal console. The readings were unlike anything humanity had encountered before, energy signatures that dwarfed even the Void Eternal, movement patterns that suggested not a fleet but a migration. Something was coming from the galactic rim. Something ancient and vast. Nakamura, he called to the science officer as she prepared to leave the observation deck. Those experimental quantum weapons we decommissioned after the war, how quickly could we bring them back online? Her expression darkened as she understood the implications. You think we'll need them again? I hope not, Reeves replied, studying the ominous readings. But hope isn't a strategy. The lessons of the Kazthrul War had fundamentally changed humanity's approach to galactic politics. The peace they had maintained for centuries hadn't been abandoned, but it had been balanced with preparedness. Never again would humanity be caught unaware by predators from the stars. As the second chance accelerated toward Earth, communication arrays across human space continued broadcasting the message that had kept peace for 5 years, and would continue to do so for centuries to come. We chose peace. Remember what happened when that choice was taken from us. But quietly, behind that message of restraint, humanity prepared. The Charybdis array remained in orbit around Venus, its targeting systems updated and expanded. The quantum weapons technology, officially decommissioned, had been refined in secret facilities throughout the solar system. And the experimental dreadnoughts, more advanced than even the Wrath of Terror, waited in hidden shipyards. The Terran Response had shown the galaxy that humanity's peaceful nature was a choice, not a weakness. And as new threats emerged from the darkness between stars, that lesson would serve as both warning and promise. Peace was humanity's preference. War was humanity's expertise, and any species that forgot the difference wouldn't live long enough to make that mistake twice.